Plus, you get to see a lot of different art and cool,
I get to see all kinds of stuff.
cool takes on things, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
and most people are gracious enough to when I ask to record in their studio, they're like, it's either oh man, it's a mess, but come on,
Yeah,
or yes, please come do that.
yeah,
And there's no
yeah.
never like I'm gonna have to clean it first. Hang
Uh-huh.
on.
Well,
So
this is as clean as this little space gets. My studio is small, but it works right
yeah,
now. And I feel like eventually I will outgrow it, but right now it's working.
you've got all this lovely natural light too.
Yeah, I do like that, and I found creative ways to store things. And I don't paint super large yet. I would like to eventually someday, but I'm relatively a small canvas, and I guess just like a small dimensions art.
So we talking like 16 by 24. What do we got on the walls in here right here?
Um, well, here's two. These are 8 by 10s. These are going to be delivered tomorrow. That's a commission for a guy I know for his wife. And then I think this is an 11 by 14. That's going to be part of my snake series. Behind you, those pieces are, yeah, right there. Those frames I found in yard sales, and I like to thrift a lot of my materials. In fact, the spine and serpent is it's I'll show you when we can move some more things. But it is painted on low density board, and I
Yeah.
actually grabbed that from my daughter's IKEA bed when we took it apart because she was changing beds. So
Upcycled shipping materials. I'm also guilty.
yeah, because an artist is kind of like a crow that wants shiny things. I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh, I can do something with that.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up saving a lot of weird stuff. And then sometimes I look at it and go, you know what, I've had this for like 5 years, and it's time to throw this away. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, today's the day that I make you a thing,
Yeah.
So
And you never know which side of the fence that's going to fall on
exactly.
when you look at the thing. But
Yeah.
since we rolled into conversation here, I'm going to do the spiel so I
Okay.
can introduce the show and you can
Sure.
introduce yourself. Everyone, this is the latest episode of the KAAMP. That is the Knoxville Area Artist Network and Platform podcast thing. And I'm in North Knoxville today with a friend. Will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Lyndsey Ullom, and I am a wildlife and portrait artist here in the Knoxville area. Been an artist all my life, but I am now doing that full time the last 2 years, basically.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So, fruitful venture?
Yeah. I am learning a lot about being a business owner, and I am learning a lot about how to market myself. And really, it sounded scary to me at first, but it boils down to letting people know what you're about and who you are and what you do. Because if you don't let people know, then they're not going to be able to find you. They won't realize you have things that they might be interested in.
Right.
So that's what I've been trying to, I guess, not master, but get better at.
And speaking of the finding such, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. That's really my primary platform because it's just so easy to throw art on there and post and let people know what I'm doing from day to day. But I also am working on my website. It's on Square, and that should be ready really soon. I will be making a post about that on my Instagram, and I have a Facebook as well.
And that's all under what name?
Lyndsey Ullom Art.
And it's everything across the board,
Mm-hmm.
all that name?
Yeah.
So your SEO is stacked.
Yeah, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And I have a Google My Business now. I felt like a real big girl when that happened. So
yeah, that form is a fun one.
Yeah. So yeah.
So, when do you first remember arting?
When do I remember arting?
Yes, for the first time, if you can nail it down.
Yeah. So I actually,
Uh-oh.
I really do. I have.
She's looking for things.
I am. Well, in cleaning this room recently, I found this box, which I knew I had it, but it contains a lot of Lyndsey's old art. And so what I realized when I was looking at this is that I really like to tell stories
Mm.
with my art. And that's maybe something that didn't stand out to me until I was like looking through my childhood stuff. But yeah, I remember. So this is Old Joe. I don't know who Old Joe is, but it's just a drawing of a dude. Lots of animal art, lots of people drawings. So I remember, oh, and if you like Ninja Turtles, I was a big Ninja Turtle
Of
fan.
course, I love Ninja Turtles.
Um, I apparently didn't know how to spell when I was doing these,
Well,
but I got better at that. But here's April O'Neil.
got the
But
bases covered.
yeah. So I had shared these on my Instagram a couple days back, but I do remember always being good at drawing. Adults telling me, "Oh my goodness, that's good," and that encourages you to keep doing it. Um, and so yeah, art has. I feel like that was my first love, and then I discovered that I also love music, but I think drawing and the visual artist part of me was always there.
Yeah.
Um, so
So
yeah,
the oldest thing in that box, how old were you? Like five,
Prob-
6, 7?
probably yeah, 4, 5, 6, something like
Okay.
that. As soon as I could grip a pencil
Yeah.
correctly, or not even correctly, probably, but just
What,
to be able to control a pencil, I'm sure I was drawing.
when did
Yeah.
when did music come?
Um, I learned music through. I had my grandmother. She had 8 sisters and 1 brother, so I felt like I had 72 grandmothers. Growing up, and they could play the piano, and they were all churchgoers. So like all the old hymns and things like that. It's kind of how I cut my teeth on music. So singing was the first avenue for
Yeah.
me to do music, and then I learned piano, and my grandmother tried to teach me, but I ended up teaching myself a little bit. So
The church is good for sticking people on the piano.
it is.
Yeah, it's really good for sticking people
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
piano.
Yeah. So I remember singing my first solo in a little church in East Knoxville. It's called St. Paul United Methodist, and my great aunt was playing the piano for me, and I think I may have missed my cue, and I just turned around and I said, "Can we start over?" And everybody in the congregation just laughed, and so I was like, "Okay," it's
We're
like I
on your
got the
side.
nerves out of the way, but I remember that moment pretty well.
That's funny. My great aunt also played piano in the church I grew up in. World is indeed small.
Yes.
So, can you give me like a chronological tour through your mediums up till now?
Sure. Um, I think that, like I said, when I was younger, drawing was really my first you know medium that I really took to in art. Um, just because it's so readily available.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a pencil around. There's always a scrap of paper. Um, my parents put me in art lessons. I think when I was about in 5th grade. On and off, I had a couple teachers, but it was really drawing for me mostly until probably my 20s. I started painting a little bit, and there's a girl on the internet, Inspired to Write is her Instagram handle, and she talks about sometimes you have to make shitty art
Oh yeah,
to
absolutely.
to make good art. And so I remember, playing around with just some abstract ideas. I really was drawn to color. Um, Bright, bold, big colors. I really liked how that looked on the canvas, but I didn't have the control. And so all of those early years, I feel like I was just kind of getting down the control of the brush and the effects that I wanted to create. Didn't always come out like I wanted, but I just kept at it because I could see the progress.
Yeah.
It was just slow. So I think that those years of teaching myself how to do that really helped me get into all the things that I'm doing now.
So, do you ever experience any crossover between your musical and artistic practices?
That's a good question. I think that I think very visually, and so music to me has always felt visual, even though it's not. That's the quickest thing that comes to mind. I haven't done any projects where those two things combine, I don't think. but
not intentionally.
Not intentionally, but yeah, those are my two big loves.
Yeah.
I like writing music, and it was always, I did that as a therapeutic device before I actually started going to therapy. I plug for therapy. It's good stuff. But that was kind of my way of dealing with the big emotions. Sometimes, yeah, I would draw, I would do art, but writing music and playing around on piano, it just seemed to help when, words were not there.
Yeah. Just sometimes that avenue is an easier one to express those things.
Absolutely.
I'm not musically inclined, at least not anymore.
But you own all this nice recording equipment.
Oh, well, that's for spoken word goofiness.
We could do, hey, you know what? We could do a voice lesson. That I bet you've never had a voice lesson on a podcast before.
I've not had a voice lesson on a podcast.
Okay.
That's almost a twist of my arm. I have had people perform live on the podcast.
Okay.
Live from the future in the past. And that's been pretty cool. But that happens few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
I think last time I had somebody set up their keyboard in my living room. And
nice.
Just went with that, and that was a good time.
Yeah.
I think that was Michael Morgan, if I remember correctly. That was like last summer.
Well, I'll need to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
Episode.
He's a pianist
and
a vocalist, and he does custom arrangements of covers that
oh wow,
most folks don't do.
That's
custom
cool.
Arrangements.
Yeah.
But, he rocks it. I like listening to him a lot. But outside of that, when did portraiture, animals, nature, bright colors all sort of coalesce into what you call your subject matter and style?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that when I went into business just a couple years ago, I really didn't know what my style was. And when you're marketing yourself or you're trying to tell people what you're about, you kind of need to have an idea. And I've always enjoyed drawing faces.
Yeah.
It was a challenge to me. It was something I was good at. Even looking through some of the pictures that I drew of family members as a child, they're not bad. And I guess I just always had that talent to like see a face and get the likeness pretty well down on paper. I realized that through COVID, I started painting animals more because it's like you said, I think we all sort of dipped into things and experimented with different things to keep ourselves entertained.
Instead of baking bread, I bought, audio equipment.
Yeah. Well, I started teaching myself Spanish and how to write with my left hand. So I was.
Oh, you went real hard.
I went real hard.
Because you're right-handed, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was difficult.
Yeah. So, and part of it was because sometimes I feel like I have like a little tennis elbow or just overuse when I'm doing too much art. And so I wanted to save those muscles as much as possible. So that's why the left-handed thing happened. But I remember I was in my studio and I had a blank canvas and I was like, okay, I'm feeling like making some art and I don't know what I'm going to paint. And so I asked my husband, what should I paint? He's like, a mantis shrimp was the first thing off his. I was like,
that's a very colorful animal.
I was like, what is a mantis shrimp? He's like, dude, they're so cool. And so he showed me this video of a mantis shrimp, and there are these mean little dudes on the ocean floor that are like,
they are gnarly.
Yeah, so weird looking. And so I was like, all right, challenge accepted. And so I painted the mantis shrimp, and it was good because like I said, those little things are mean, apparently. They're kind of predatory.
They're very hostile.
Yeah, and so I felt like I put all of my COVID hostility into the painting, and I was like, I really like this mantis shrimp. I really like how this came out. And so that was when I realized, I really should try doing more animal portraits and things of that nature. So that's kind of how I jumped into that.
So you on a dare, essentially.
A little bit, yeah, from my husband.
Well, he certainly didn't set the bar low.
No, it was a hard piece, but and I actually still have that one. Some things are not for sale, right? If it's a painting that I'm like, oh, I really crossed a threshold of like, that meant something to me. And so I don't keep a lot of them, but I
But
do keep
but
a
that
few.
one
Yeah.
is permanently in the
Yeah.
collection.
Yeah.
Um,
And I am gonna say a bad word real quick, but
oh no.
I know, clutch the pearls.
We'll
But
we'll make sure this one is rated E.
okay. Um, but yeah, the mantis shrimp, I named him because that's how I was feeling about COVID. So that his
I'm with
name
it.
is fuck you, the mantis shrimp.
Well, if we're gonna continue said trend, back before all this started going down, COVID wise, I made some wall art,
Oh,
and
okay.
it wasn't your typical live, love, laugh wall
Oh
art.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
fuck, shit, cunt wall art.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Yeah,
it
that
was.
took it to a different
Yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah. It's not for the normal folk at all. This is for the ornery people like myself.
Gotcha.
But
That's
I
funny.
had people ask me to make them as fridge magnets and all kinds of stuff. But that was one that entertained me to a degree that I just couldn't
Absolutely.
pass up sharing it.
I'm telling you what. I think that's why I liked teaching middle school is because I'm just as immature as they are.
The jokes hit.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm like I'm really kind of shocked that I got through all of that career without, dropping some really
Being
bad words in
reprimanded.
class or something, but I'm
My mom
actually
was a English teacher for most of her 30 something years in teaching, and she taught sixth grade for most of that. So,
nice.
and I had her as a teacher, so I know both sides of this equation. And
Absolutely.
I'm also surprised my mother never got reprimanded for
Yeah.
strangling or, throwing a verbal beat down to some kids
Yeah.
because they deserved it.
Yeah, you might could say that the sailor speech is another medium in which I am well versed.
Fair enough. Yeah. When she would really lay into me, it was after hours when we were at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, the way she would talk to me is not the way she would talk to me in class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember sometimes getting after students and I would stutter. And I thought, gosh, that makes me look so weak, but it's because I'm looking for another word that I can actually say in school.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Because if you were to say the thing you wanted to say, you'd have to go to the principal's office too.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just walk there together. We're
Yeah.
both going to go.
Me and you both were in trouble.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Kicker to that is I'd get in trouble in my mom's class a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And my great aunt was the science teacher across the hall.
Oh, no.
So I would get in trouble in both of their classrooms. And
Oh, man.
the other would see me and be like, well, they'd step outside in the hallway and be like, well, what are you in trouble for this time, huh? I'm like, well, I said some stuff. And since we were in the hallway, my mom would be like, well, you need to quit being a smart ass.
It might help things.
My aunt would never say such things, but my mom would privately scorn me in such a way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta know when to reel it back in, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, anyway.
Well, my mom's an excellent teacher, and it was a privilege to have her as a teacher to see how she did that. But I think I was punished, reprimanded, and given the wag of the finger a little bit differently than the rest of the classmates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think I could have avoided that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I only taught my daughter in sixth grade year. She wasn't in my class very often, but of course she was, in the building. I saw her a lot, but and it was funny because I had been waiting for so long for her to get old enough to be in my school. And by the time that she had gotten to my school, I'm like, I am so burnt out on teaching. I can't do this, So it didn't really happen how I thought it would, but that's okay.
Well, my middle and high school experience was really unique in the way that a lot of my family is involved in the education system. Like my mom, my great aunt, one of my grandmothers, were all teachers, and I had them all in class.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
my grandfather was the principal of the school.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I couldn't get in trouble. And if I got in trouble, I was the example. So
Right.
my grandfather told me once, he said, son, if you think I'm gonna whoop your ass, what do you think these other kids think I'm gonna do to them? So I was like, Papa, that's a good point. I still don't like being the example.
Yeah.
But I had to be visible as an example that no one was above the rules,
Right.
even though I had the same last name
My
as the guy in
goodness.
charge, so
Yeah.
it didn't matter. But it wasn't so bad. Every now and again, he'd pull me out of class to go pick up trash off the roof. So
Oh, wow.
it had its perks.
It does have it. Yeah.
It has its perks.
Well, and, my daughter, she was a little bit nervous about 6th grade, but she wasn't as nervous as she might have been because, she had grown up in that building.
Yeah.
She had been there since she was little bitty, so she knew where everything was, and she knew a lot of the teachers. So that was nice. That was kind of a cool thing.
The familiarity does breed comfort, and that's super convenient.
Mm-hmm. Because middle school is, probably no one can say that middle school was their favorite time. I will warn you that he is kind of a jerk.
Well, if this cat jumps in my lap, I will threaten him with pets.
Okay.
Lots of them.
And yeah. And he will be, maybe he will act like he likes that, and then he'll be a little bit mean about it. He and I have been in like a 2-week fight.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Well, just so the listeners know, there's an orange cat courting my attention right now.
Mm-hmm. And he looks like he's about to, don't you do it.
I felt the nose. I may be about to get some love bites.
Yeah, he and I are, well, I'm the mom, and he's the teenage boy, and I'm going to win this battle. If it's the last thing I do.
You stared into my soul and said that. You know this. You, like, with authority made this statement.
Yeah, I mean it. I mean it deep in my soul. Like, honestly, he's been such a bully, and he is just so, he's just so dominant personality-wise. I've never had, here's the thing. When I grew up, orange cats that we had were so docile and sweet.
Now they're just ridiculous.
And I begged my husband about 2 years ago. Our 2 animals that had been with us the longest passed away 2 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
And so I begged my husband, please, let's just get an orange cat. They're so sweet. They're the sweetest cats you can get. And then I picked this cat, and he's like the spawn of Satan. Like, he's so mean. Every now and then he'll be sweet, and it's like just sweet enough to convince me not to, like, find him a new owner. I'm just kidding. I won't do that, but I threaten it quite frequently.
I have to be really careful about how I treat my cat. She's gorgeous, and she knows it. So when
he does too.
When people compliment, I have to tell them, like, listen, like, lower your voice. She has an ego. She hears these things. She walks around the house for weeks.
For sure.
Like her shit don't stink. So I just have to be like, listen, cat. I know you're gorgeous, but, like, chill.
He will talk back to me.
My cat is incredibly mouthy.
Yeah. If he's on the table trying to, like, he'll jump up and try to eat some, leftover food that we haven't cleared off the table or something. And I'll get after him, and he'll go, meh, meh, to me. And I'm like, dude, I will put you in your room. And so he spent his room is our bathroom. He spent a lot of alone time in his room the last couple of days because I'm like, that's not going to fly anymore. So you didn't know that you were going to touch a nerve with that. I'm like, yeah.
We're here for it. It's all good. Speaking of mouthy cats.
Yes.
My cat is ridiculous in the way that she will open her mouth once, and her bottom jaw will not come back to the top. And then it's just a barrage of noise.
Oh, my goodness.
And, like, sounds that don't even sound like they should come from a cat come out of this cat. And
what kind of cat is she?
She's a medium length calico, and just fluffy as all get out.
Aww.
And I've had a lot of cats in my life. I'm 30. I must have had, between growing up and being an adult, my own pets and stuff, 6 or 7 cats.
Okay.
And this one is the mouthiest, most ridiculous noise-making cat I've ever heard in my life. And I swear she speaks English in her head. I swear she does.
I know he understands when we're talking. I feel like I have, like, analyze the behavior of this cat like it's a student at school.
Yeah. I was about to say, you've spent a lot of time reading this cat.
I really have. It's ridiculous.
Have you painted this cat yet?
I have painted him.
You have painted
I have. So let's see if I can find you one.
What is this cat's name?
His name is Kirby.
Kirby.
Do you know the rapper Aesop Rock?
Yeah.
Okay, so he has a song called Kirby, and it's about his cat, who I'm sure is a very sweet cat. So right. I get it may not match with the song, but that's what we named him because, Aesop Rock doesn't have a whole lot of songs that the kids can listen to.
Right, but a song
but
about
that one is okay. So, That's what we. That's why we named him that. We all love that song. I'm looking to see if I can find. So I did do a painting of Kirby. Let's see.
Kirby, you're a muse on occasion. How do you feel about this?
He feels like he should be paid for his modeling.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Compensation. Here's one of digital.
That is cute.
Thank you. This is a.
You look way better on canvas. Way less mischievous.
Yeah. He definitely knows.
When I'm recording at home, aka the super secret studio, Nia likes to get up. She's always in my lap, but she'll get up and like sniff the microphone and make all kinds of god awful noises, like I was telling you. So,
yes.
Like, every now and again, you'll hear some just like screeching or mewing or clicking or something. It's the cat. It's always the cat.
Well, so this is a picture of him, obviously, when he's taking a nap, and then so this one was a ink drawing that I took a picture of and made prints of.
Yeah.
But the one with the tomato, that was 2 years ago. I found a call for art for the Tomato Festival in Nashville, and it's in the Five Points area. And I just got back a couple weeks back from the one this year, but the idea is to put tomatoes in the piece, whatever you want. You've got to incorporate tomato or fruit. And so I did animals, and I did this big rooster, and I put a tomato on each side of him, and I called it Cock and Maters, and I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was so funny.
Well, obviously I agree with you.
It made me laugh, right? So I did that one, and I did one with Kirby.
What color was the rooster?
He was pretty. Here, I have a print of him as well. Kirby, sir.
I hate to tell you, but you missed a golden opportunity to say that was a big black cock.
Oh, you're so right.
I'm terrible.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to apologize, but that's
wow. You are so correct.
The door you could have walked through on that.
Well, you know.
Well, now that I'm holding a print of the cock and maters in my hand, I have to confirm for the listeners that the cock is indeed not black.
Oh my god.
It is a average, normal colored rooster when you get to stereotypical roosters.
Yes.
But that is perfect for the Tomato Festival.
Thank you.
And very, very imaginative naming. And
Thank you. So the originals that first year, which was a great feeling because it was, just a couple months after I was like, okay, I'm doing this full time. But all three of those originals sold. I also did a turtle that was eating like little cherry tomatoes.
Aww. You got me with the turtle.
Yeah, based off of a kind of a true story. So my mom and dad live in East Knoxville, and they have a pretty good chunk of land. It's not super huge or anything, but enough to have critters a lot of the time. And so there was this box turtle. My dad had walked down the long driveway, crossing the street to get to the mailbox, and it had been, I guess, hit by a car or something had happened, and his shell was damaged. So my dad took him up to their house and kind of fed him, a little bit and was trying to take care of him. Well, he stayed around. He didn't. The next day, here's this turtle. And so for years, I don't know how long, the kids named it Bob, Lucky Bob.
Well, fair.
Yeah, Lucky Bob. And so my dad built him an enclosure, and they had Lucky Bob for a long time. I don't know that they've seen him this year, but who's to say he won't return? So that was Lucky Bob.
It's a turtle of his own volition.
Yes. And so that was kind of based off that. But yeah, I sold all three of those originals that first year, and it made me feel like, man, I can do this. It was kind of empowering, and it felt really nice to do that. So this year I had Dolly. I did a whole Dolly theme. And so this is Beefsteak Barbie. That one didn't sell, but
Are those heirloom tomatoes?
Yeah, these are beefsteak heirloom tomatoes. And then Jolene is on the wall right here. She is called Roma and Jolene. I know that's cheesy, but again, made me happy. And then I have, let's see here. Where is my Dolly piece?
As a redhead, I love this.
Thanks.
This works
Good. I'm
in
glad.
levels of my person that don't often get tickled.
Well, I am coming up short, but I can find it on my phone. I have a dolly piece, and it was actually, I'm gonna admit, it was the suggestion of my friend, and she said you ought to do a dolly piece where she's holding these big tomatoes in front of her chest. I'm
Right.
like, everybody loves a boob joke, so this is Dolly's heirlooms.
Everybody loves a boob joke.
Everybody loves a boob joke.
That's not only like a verbal pun, but a visual pun
Yeah.
as well.
So, and I have been a Dolly fan ever since everyone loves Dolly. Most people love Dolly,
It's hard
rightfully
not to
so.
be,
Yes.
especially when you grow up around here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like I said, me and my 72 grandmothers would go to Dollywood when I was little. And of course, back then it was smaller,
Yeah.
it wasn't quite as built up as it is now. But just something about her, walking through the park and like the little rocks would be a Dolly singing voice.
Yeah.
Everywhere she was just like, it was permeated with Dolly. And
That's one of the games I play. Like, which one of these rocks is a speaker?
yeah, I love that. It's so cheesy and I love it. And so she's just been one of my inspirations ever since I've been little. So, and I think that one of the things I love about her so much is her humor. So I think like if she saw the Dolly's heirlooms, I feel like she would like it.
I think she would have a good laugh about it. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. She's very self-aware and doesn't take herself too seriously.
No,
so
yeah, and I think that's great.
I think that would
life
be,
is too short to be serious all
if
the
she didn't
time.
get a chuckle out of it, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. I would love to think that she maybe has seen it on the internet and laughed.
Do it.
Oh.
See, I just got
When
that was a strafing run right
yeah,
there.
that was like two redheaded powers, kind of like
I saw it in his eyes. He wanted to jump in the
He
chair,
did.
so I just
He
dared him to
did.
do it.
But he doesn't want you to think that he wants to.
Oh, I saw it on his face.
Yeah.
He couldn't hide it. I saw the eyes dial in to the top of the chair.
The funniest thing about that cat is if he does something dorky, like the other night, he was running, he had the zoomies, and he tried to jump up on his little, like, carpeted cat, tree thingy, and he had too much momentum, and so he, like, went off the other side, and my husband chuckled, and he, like, looked at my husband, like, he doesn't want to be laughed at.
Oh, so he's easily embarrassed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
He's a trip, so,
That's
my husband often he says, Lyndsey, what have you brought into this house? I'm like, I don't know. I like the crazy ones. I'm drawn to the weird ones.
And
Yeah.
you just look at your husband, right?
Oh, yeah, well, except for you, honey. No, but yeah, all the animals, he did point out, and I didn't realize this, but all the animals that we have owned together as a couple, I have picked.
Ooh.
And we've been together for like almost 20 years.
Is it his turn soon?
It's his turn probably for the rest of our lives. If I'm being honest.
Witness, we have that on
I
audio.
know. But yeah, I did pick a real crazy.
If you start painting the animals that he picks and you don't like them, you can tell them that's all his fault.
Yeah, there we go.
So you have an out.
I do. But I will say that with painting, I've done more pet portraits the last couple years than before. It's interesting because the color palettes, even though, animal fur, like dogs and cats, tend to be, you got your gamut of like blacks, browns, whites, tans, blondes. There's so much still like detail even in that small palette of color.
Oh yeah.
So it's been interesting. Like it's almost, I always say art to me is like working a puzzle backwards. And so
I've not heard that before.
Yeah.
I get it, but this is the first time I've heard those words.
Well, to me, it's like I love jigsaw puzzles, and sometimes if I'm stuck in my studio and I'm not producing art that I like or that I want to do, I'll do a jigsaw puzzle. And it's like it helps me work that side of my brain without creating something.
Well, it's the jigsaw puzzle is you work with the pieces to make the whole, and then I suppose like the logic with making the art is the whole, and then you have to work with the pieces to get the whole.
Yes.
So that's an apt analogy. I like that.
Yeah. So but yeah, learning the structure of of their faces and all of that. And plus, one thing that I always do if when I'm asked to do a pet portrait is I always fall in love with the pet because I'm literally
Yeah.
staring at its face. I'm literally like looking in its eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this pet so much. So
Yeah.
I love this dog or I love this cat. So
I just want to pet it.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I get asked pretty frequently to do memorial pieces because it's
But
an
you can't pet that dog.
I can't. No, and I actually don't really get to pet that many. Have gotten to pet a couple um doggies that I painted, but um yeah, and it means so much to me when people ask me to do that because it's such a hard loss to go through. And so I know it's like super meaningful. So I'm always honored when people ask me to do
Yeah.
that.
The last pet portrait I did was a buddy's what dog? Rottweiler named
Mm.
Basil. Yeah,
Basil.
she was a big old sweetie.
Aw.
And I called my buddy up one day. I was like, "Hey, I got this thing. You might like it. I'm gonna send it to you." I was like, "Give me your email. I'll send you the file."
Uh-huh.
And he called me like 3 minutes after I sent the file, like tears in his eyes. He's
Oh
like, "Hey
my
man, I can't believe you did
gosh.
that."
I
Like,
know,
I was
right?
like, "Well, too late. It's yours now. You gotta have
Oh,
it."
yay. Yeah. Yeah, it's really meaningful. I did the same thing with a neighbor across the street when they were living here in town. So it's kind of a nice thing to do, a nice surprise to give someone.
Yeah, and for me, like I don't do those very often or paint like, you know, animate beings in
Mm-hmm.
general a lot because I do a lot of abstract stuff.
Okay.
And like I don't do a lot of people or animals. So just like sitting down, focusing on something that is outside of my wheelhouse is an excellent practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, it's also an exercise.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a story. Probably about, gosh, I feel like it's 10 years, so really probably it's more like 15 years because now that I'm in my 40s, everything is 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the older we get, the shorter the past feels. I
Yes,
think it's
yes.
really cruel trick of being alive.
But I have learned in, with my art journey that if someone says, "Hey, do you think you could paint such and such?" or "Hey, do you think you can draw such and such?" I've learned not to say no. I've learned to
Yeah,
just
give it a try.
kind of try it
Yeah.
first because so there was an event and I think they still do this, but it was a breast cancer charity thing called Save the Tatas.
Yeah.
And that's where, ladies go in, they get, their breasts painted, like some image, whatever cool thing, and then they are photographed, from the neck down, so it's not identifying. So I signed up to be an artist for that. And I remember just like these girls coming in with ideas, and like it ended up being super chaotic, not necessarily like disorganized, but just like so busy. There were so many women that wanted to get painted.
Yeah.
And just like I was turning, I was turning through these girls like rapid fire, just trying to paint one after the other. And I had my trusty phone. I remember one lady, she wanted a Grateful Dead head.
Yes.
And one lady wanted like a gun, and like on the other side like Thug Life, So like these people were asking for these crazy things I had never painted. And I'm like, okay, well I guess here we go.
We'll give it a go. See what
I
happens.
remember by the end of that night I was exhausted, just completely exhausted from having done that. But it showed me, I'm like, dang, I did that.
Yeah,
And
all
it
these things
came out pretty good,
And you wouldn't have done them under your own direction
Exactly.
at any given time.
Never would I have gone, you know what, I think I'm going to do a
Guns and Thug Life.
Guns and Thug Life. But it ended up being really cute. So.
Yeah, a scenario similar. I did a fundraiser for the Small Breed Rescue of East Tennessee several years ago.
Okay.
And it was me and 5 of my artist buddies, and we had 2 hours, and between the 5 or 6 of us, whatever the number ended up being, we spent 20 minutes on each canvas and then swapped canvases.
Oh, wow.
So we had prompts for
Yeah.
each canvas,
Uh-huh.
and then by the time everything went full rotation, we came back to our own canvas.
That sounds fun. I would like that.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
I would very much like to do a similar event. So it's out there in the universe. Somebody call me. But uh, yeah, that was really cool, and it was a scenario that I would have never have
Yeah.
done if it wasn't for the context of this event. Like
Uh-huh.
it was my idea for the event, but it was a scenario that I would have never put myself in otherwise. So
Uh-huh. Did you
it's
have any
similar experience.
favorites? Any pieces that came out as a favorite?
Yeah, there were two of them that I really, really liked, and they were all auctioned off on eBay for the charity.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But one of them, I think the prompt for one was like uh, Doggy Dream House. It's like the most luxurious or
Oh
awesome
my
dog house.
gosh.
Like it had satellite
Oh
TV
my gosh, that's
and
cute.
a bone garden. It's like bones
That
were
sounds like
growing like
a
corn.
yeah,
Like
like a children's book or
yeah, it
something.
was some ridiculous,
Oh.
fantastical, like just super luxurious doghouse. And the other one was uh, sleep poses.
Oh my
So it was a
gosh.
person and a dog in the bed, and of course the dog's like all stretched out and
Uh-huh.
taking up most of the bed, and the person's just like over here,
Yeah,
and
it
of
has
course
like
the
five
dog has
inches
all the
of
covers and you know that kind of thing. So yeah, those two, I think they sold for 300 or 400 bucks a piece, and then the
cool.
other ones went for 100 to 200 bucks. So we raised a little over $1,000
That's
for the
awesome.
small breed rescue, and yeah, that was a ton of fun. Good memories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have to dig out some pictures for that. I need to do that again. But
Yeah.
yeah, that similar scenario, crazy circumstances. I had no control over what was going to be handed to me next,
Right.
so it was just we're gonna go
We're gonna go with it.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
And by the end of the night, we all just say, "Hey, everybody, when these are dry, they'll be up on eBay next week. And if you want to donate to the charity, go bid on one of these paintings."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good time.
Yeah.
I never thought I would paint a dog sleeping next to somebody in the bed, but
Right.
there it was. Or a doghouse that had sunroofs and satellite TV and a field full of bones.
That's kind of how I felt when I was standing there painting an apple on one boob and a snake on the other. you know.
Yeah, that this is the level of ridiculous I look for in my life. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, huh. What am I doing right now? This is weird. But
And then you
it's
look around
fun.
the room and everyone is smiling and having a great
Yeah,
time.
yeah. It was a
Absolutely.
great event.
I
It
bet
was a
it was.
super, everyone was cool and yeah, I would do it again.
Oh, 100%
Yeah.
in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would happily repeat such a scenario.
Mhm.
Um, how would you say you stumbled upon how your work looks, your style? Now, if I had to throw a label on your style, it's colorful, but
Mhm.
and it's almost cartoony, but not really. It's exaggerated in
Mhm.
perhaps a fantastical way.
Mhm.
Is that something you jive with?
Yeah, I don't know, like I I have given this a lot of thought and I'm not sure I'm super articulate about it yet, but I think that one of the things that I have been going towards a little bit is that whimsical thing that you're talking about, and I like to layer. With acrylic paint, it's not as rich inherently as oil paint,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I feel like with acrylic you have to do a lot of layering. You have to it's really about trying to, I guess I'm looking at these oak leaves, the snake painting, and this is not finished. It's maybe midway through, but just like trying to get the play of light and maybe being a little bit impressionistic, but um yeah, I guess that's what I'm into right now, is just getting that. Just sometimes I find myself squinting when I'm painting. I
Yeah.
kind of like squint, and it's almost like I try to make it a little blurry. And does it look like I want it to when it's blurry?
Yeah.
And sometimes that translates. You know what I'm saying?
I do exactly. And a buddy of mine, Luke, he does finger paintings,
Oh
and
yeah,
he uses
I do a lot of finger painting too.
a lot of dot work.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking him about it one day. I was like, "Why? How does this work for you in your brain? Like, how do you logic this out?" And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, I just kind of cross my eyes and look at it, and
Yeah.
if the color gradients and the highlights and the shadows and everything sort of work when I'm not
Yes.
focused on it,
Yes.
then that's when I know everything's in a pretty good way."
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that.
Apparently not. Apparently not.
Yeah.
But he explained that to me, and I looked at him, and I was just like, "Well, shit. All right, yeah, you like nailed it. Makes
Yeah.
perfect sense."
Yeah.
And he does like big pieces, like three by
Mm-hmm.
four, six by
Uh-huh.
six, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's got to stand across the room and look
Right.
at it.
That's one thing you do have to step away and come back, because I will, and my daughter is 13 and she's an artist as well. And she is like the best coach, because I'll call her and I'm like, tell me what's wrong with this dog face. And I'll be like mad, like,
Because
why doesn't it
you've
look
been
like,
this close to it the whole time.
I'm like, just like, yeah, like, and you think it's going to happen, and then you make one little move and you're like, oh God, there it went. It doesn't look like him at all. And she'll say, Mom, you need to take a break.
Let it dry, walk away.
Yeah. And it's like, how is my 13-year-old the voice of reason in this situation? But she totally is.
Well, that's because you came to the scenario with the hysterics.
Yes. Yes. And she also is like, I think that you need to darken this, and you need to round out this eye right here. And I'm like, she is able to just critique. And I'm like, that's pretty nice having you in the house.
Right.
Like, this is awesome,
It's a handy built-in.
It really is cool. And she's got a lot of natural talent. She is really good at digital art. She does a lot of stuff on Procreate, and I have Procreate as well. And, I have learned just enough to like draw and get to what I want to do. But she's like actually taking the time to look through all of it and like figure out what each feature does. And so I'm like, how do I flip this image? She's like, oh, that's easy. Like
these click.
Yeah. So, she knows a lot of stuff. I usually ask her. In fact, the first reel that I made of a process video, she taught me how to do the voiceover on it. my 8th grader.
Right. Well, I mean, they're the ones that are making this happen.
I know. And I'm glad that I always felt like digital art was like not available, because when, I was in college age, you had to be an art major to be able to understand stuff like that. It wasn't just an app that you could get. So I'm glad that it's available.
Oh, it's way more accessible now.
Yeah.
And there are lots of really good free painting and drawing softwares out there now.
Yeah.
Like I use Photoshop for a lot of the digital painting that I do. And I've been using Photoshop for over a decade now. And then for just random drawing stuff, I'll use Krita and Inkscape, and those are awesome.
Cool.
And they're open. Well, Inkscape is open source, but Krita is a little more locked down. But like it's super handy, and just the utility of a single brush in Krita is so crazy.
Well, my favorite feature is the back arrow. Just
Absolutely.
the simple back
100%.
arrow.
The history window, taking snapshots, and the history window in Photoshop are probably my two most used things that aren't a brush or an eraser. Yeah.
I have never gotten super familiar with Photoshop. It's on the to-do list.
Well, for painting functionalities, it is super capable. And if you like to go through a lot of iterations of a thing, snapshots are where it's at, because you can take a snapshot and that will save that version in a recallable format, where it'll be like, hey, in the history, I want to go back to this before I made this change, this change. And then you can have the entire file at that point when you hit the snapshot and be able to work on it just the same.
Okay.
So you can recall versions of stuff like
That's
that.
super cool.
Oh, it's super handy, because you can customize it, but you can only have so many instances of history, because however you said it, but I think the stock out of the box for the program is like 50 instances, so 50 different moves of whatever, and then it just keeps refreshing at that number, so you add one gets deleted, but the snapshot will hold that throughout the whole project, so you can just reference that at any given time. So I use that a lot. And then I also do a lot of iterative design with layers.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to create a new layer and hide that one and draw this where that was supposed to go, and see what happens.
Yeah.
So it's once you figure out the functionality of the core things you want to use, everything else just sort of falls into place.
Yeah. At one point, I was trying to do a pet portrait, and I guess I locked a layer, or I did something weird, and I could not erase this one, like whatever that layer was. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just gonna work with it, because I still don't know what I did to that thing.
You did probably lock it.
Yeah. So she is always saying, Mom, you need to make some more layers. I'm like, but this is how I draw. It's just like on this one piece of paper. She's like, Mom, So
Right.
I'm a little bit like digging my heels in, like being a crusty old person with that. So.
Well, one of the things that really changed how I work with the program is
Mm-hmm.
I had a production artist job for an animation studio.
Oh wow.
It's not as fancy as it sounds, but I was making original assets and characters for the educational software that we were programming,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to rig these characters to be animated. So I would have to draw them in the separate pieces that had to get rigged together. So, you know, hand, forearm, upper arm.
Oh wow.
So I would draw all of them in that way
Uh-huh.
because the way the characters were rigged in the software, you had a separate file for each body part. So
Oh
the
my
torso
gosh.
would be chest and abdomen, and then you could, articulate that in the middle of the torso and do this kind of
Oh
thing.
my
And
gosh.
then, you had all of your normal articulation points like a human figure would,
Mm-hmm.
but each one of those was its own separate thing. So when I would build it up in Photoshop to create this one asset, instead of chopping up the thing that I drew as one big image, I had a layer for every individual
Oh
piece,
yeah, that's smart.
and then I would account for how they would move and like draw the radius of whatever the joint was. So when it was moving and being animated, there were no gaps or spots or anything where the
Interesting.
art was cut up. And I drew a bunch of raccoons
Mm.
for a song called "Raining Raccoons," and I had to draw parachutes on the raccoons because
Oh
it couldn't
wow.
just rain raccoons and then just splat on the ground.
Yeah, that would be a
No,
different song.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
much different song. Let's see. I did some otters.
Oh.
Um, just if I wasn't animating like human characters, I was using animals
Uh-huh.
as the plot driver for the piece of media,
Yeah.
and I think Raining Raccoons is probably my favorite.
Raining raccoons. I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna have to look that up.
I'll if, remind me when we turn the microphones off.
Okay.
I'll show you
Okay.
if it's still available on the internet. I'll show
Okay.
you.
Cool.
So that was a real technical practice on how to do this that has always just stuck in my head now.
Yeah.
So utilizing layers and locking and merging and rasterizing layers and condensing layers and locking things together in a way that simplify file structures
Mm.
and make file sizes smaller because
Mm-hmm.
they're not everything is its own asset.
Mm-hmm.
Very helpful in my later creative practices in digital artwork. So I was really
Cool.
happy for that job.
Yeah.
It taught me things.
It sounds like it did.
Taught me things more than it paid me money.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you got a little free schooling there.
Well, yeah, I did. I really did, and it's still that workflow still sticks with me because I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of promotional materials now
Cool.
for entertainment stuff, concerts, art shows, and stuff.
Great. Yeah,
So
it's awesome.
knowing that workflow for these things has been great for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I get stuff from talent agencies or promoters and stuff that isn't set up where it's easy for me to make these things look the way these people tell me they need to look, oh boy, double-edged sword.
Oh
It's
yeah.
rough. Yeah.
Gosh.
I cuss. I
Tell
cuss.
tell me it ain't so.
Right. I'll get files and be like, what do you mean? Like, none of these logos are their own individual asset. I'm going to have to cut these out and move them around. And
Oh no. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Tedious.
it could be, but what I'm really trying to say is I think every wrong way to do this is some way I've been given a file.
Oh
It's very
no.
rare that I get a file where it's just plug and play, put the information in, ready
Oh
to go.
yeah.
The
And you're like,
font's
oh, that
already
was
set
so
on the
easy. Yeah.
I think I've been doing this for like 5 years now, and I could count on one hand how many times some artist somewhere at some agency has made it easy on me.
Oh wow.
It's very frustrating.
That's a world I don't know much about, so
Well,
that's really interesting.
it's also an exercise in trying to make these things work. So like I could be uppity about it and be pissed off and be like, I don't want to do this. Somebody handed me a real steamy pile, but then like I'll take it apart and I'll do all the things I need to do to make happen what I need to happen.
Right.
Sometimes it's easier than others.
Mm-hmm.
What have you? It's just how it is. I mean, I get handed these things. It's not like I can call the people and be like, "What in the world were you thinking handing me this stuff?" So I just got roll with the hand I've been dealt.
Yeah. But
Big shrug.
that's what makes you a professional.
Is that what we call it?
Yeah. It's
Is
yeah,
that what we
you're a
call it?
professional. You're knowledgeable in your craft.
I certainly try to figure out ways to work around other people's ignorance. We can put it like that because I am often victim of it.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what have you? That's just how it is sometimes. So, do you have any moonshot projects or bodies of work you're like scheming on right now?
Yeah. So, my goals are to keep getting commissions, special customs, things like that, because I love doing them. They challenge me, and I love doing them. I am also working on, I have put it out into the world, and I've done several of these. I call them art parties, and it's kind of like, I go to someone's house, and they have a little get together, and I teach them how to paint something of their choice. I don't have stock things like you can do this, this, or this. I kind of try to get them to say, we'd like to do a squirrel riding a skateboard or whatever. We haven't done that, but that's
next.
That is next, hopefully.
That's next.
But yeah, I've been doing that, and I'm also now going into the realm of doing that for team building for like companies. So that will be cool. And I would like to, as far as shows and putting together a body of work, I have really gotten into snakes here lately, which is not something before that I would ever
I'm with it though.
Ever have thought for myself. But I think because I have, in painting a lot of wildlife, I'm also a hippie in my heart, and land conservation is super important to me, and doing right by the species in our region and all of that kind of thing. And it's interesting to me, what keeps coming back to me is so interesting, the almost visceral reaction that people have towards certain animals because they're not furry, cute, petable, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but what makes that, why does that have less value?
Where's the line here?
Yeah. So where's the love for these creatures, right? And they're because they're playing such important roles in our ecosystems. And now I'm getting into my animal feels. You see it in my face, but but that's why I really would like to do a snake show. And I know that that's not super, I don't know, appealing maybe to the bigger audience.
Run it. I'm here for it.
But I feel like if you're wanting to paint something and your heart is in it, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
You can't tailor, what you're wanting to. You can't try to fit your audience, right? So that's a series I'm working on. I've also done, reading on the symbolism in different cultures, and I want to pull that into some of the pieces. That
sounds like a perfect show to have at Iams Nature Center.
I would love it.
They do that. If you did not know,
I knew that they had artwork up. Yeah. So but yeah, so I'm playing around with that. I also am thinking of something to show the journey of an artist or the life of an artist, and because I have little factions of threads that I've kind of little tangents that I've done.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what if you put them? I was actually talking with a girl that collaborates with me. What if you put them all together and you did do? That was one of her suggestions, and I was like, that's a really cool idea, just to show the progression of all the little pathways that we go down.
Yeah.
So.
It's very rare when one person finds their thing and stays in it for their entire creative life.
Yes.
100%. Really strange. It's very, very unusual when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not how most people go about their creativity.
Yeah.
We're crossing the hour mark now.
Okay.
So, 2 questions.
Sure.
What's the notepad in your phone look like?
The notepad in my phone?
Yeah. Is it organized? Is it chaos? Is it a little bit of both?
It's organized chaos. It is a little bit of both. It's a lot of things like, ooh, I need to remember that. And then it will be like a random idea for a story I want to write whenever I have the free time, and I do that in quotations.
Yeah.
So it's like some creative, but it's also like, oh, I need to remember that email or something,
And the ever-present, I need eggs and milk. Like,
Right. Yeah, the to-do stuff. And
Right.
it's also super handy that it has the scanned documents on there. So I use that a
Isn't
lot.
that gold?
Yes,
That's
it
so
really is.
gold.
The day that I discovered that, my life changed. you
Same.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. But to give you my answer to that is, it is uh, it is very technical information I use every day at work, and then
hmm
it is just the gobbledygook that falls out of my brain about things I need to paint or jewelry I want to make,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like sketches. Since
hmm
I like draw with my finger, like basic hierarchies of images, and then I'll
hmm
use a text note with that to be like, this is going to be this here, that's this smudge over there in the left corner, and then this is going to be in the middle, and blah blah blah. So I kind of like draw a really rough sketch with my finger, and then give a verbal breakdown about how these things
Oh,
go.
wow.
And
That's
I
cool.
think this year, this question has been like my favorite thing to ask,
Really?
because there's never somebody so far that's been like, oh, it's just a normal notepad. I've just got stuff in it. It's always been like, oh, Christ, or it's actually a pretty well manicured spot for some information. And there's never anything in the middle. And I'm always entertained because I never know who's going to have
Yeah.
what. And I've had people that are real type A people,
Uh-huh.
and they're just like, you had to ask about that, didn't you?
Oh my
And I've
gosh.
had real like type B people go, this is the most organized thing in my life.
Oh
You
my gosh.
know?
No, it's not the most organized thing. I'm sure there's uh moments where I've just gone in there and started writing random poetry or
hmm
whatever, and that turns into something maybe later. But one list that I like to keep on there is the books that I've read, because one day I was like, how many books have I read? I'm not a very prolific reader. I'm a slow reader. But once I started listing them out, I was like, hey, I'm proud of myself. That's more than I thought. So
Right.
every time I
That's
finish
a
one,
good healthy
I'm
list.
like, I'm going to put it on my book list on my notepad. So,
That's a good way to quantify these things. Plus, I would imagine you don't want to read the same thing twice.
no, I usually don't. And I know some people like doing that, but there's too many books out there for me to read something twice.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the same way with movies. I don't keep a list, but I know if I've seen this movie
Right.
before, and I'd rather watch something I've not seen before than
Yeah.
most things a second or third time.
Yeah.
Um, and usually, my last question is, if you could suggest anyone you would like to hear in your place on that microphone, who would they be?
I have a really good friend, and she was also a teacher, but now she is an artist full time. Her name is Lauren Adams,
Yeah.
and she is working on a series called Nocturnal Landscapes. And how that came about, she takes like bedding
I'm aware of this. Yeah.
and turns it into an abstract form of a landscape.
Yeah, she like
So
lines of symmetry points like I've seen her work, and I follow her on Instagram.
yeah,
So yes,
yeah.
I'm
So
familiar.
she and I are we feel like we sort of went for this artist life at the same time, like full time. So we're each other's friends in that respect, like you know, full support, and
Yeah.
it's nice to have that.
So bug her next.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. All right. If you would be so kind, tell folks where they can find you on the internet one more time, and then we can go about our merry way.
Okay. So I am on Instagram. That is where I put a lot of my things, Lyndsey Ullom Art, and it's Lyndsey Ullom Ullom. It's kind of an odd last name, so I spell that for people, and art. And then my website will be it's actually up. It may not all be functional, but it's getting there, and I have Linktree and all kinds of stuff. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Friends, listeners, go check out the stuff, do the things, show the love and the support. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the KAAMP. That is the Knoxville Area Artist Network and podcast platform thing. It takes many shapes and forms. If you would like to support the artists that are featured here, go buy their stuff and tell them that their stuff is cool. They would really appreciate both of those things.
That is true.
Yeah.
Very true.
If you would like to support the podcast, go get on the new Etsy page called Red Zachary Creative. That is the new catch-all creative online storefront for myself and the podcast. We currently have t-shirts, and since it's almost hoodie weather, we got some really nice hoodies. Fridge magnets are next for you fridge magnet people. And then beyond that, it's going to be whatever merch is suggested to me for the podcast. So if somebody says, hey, man, I'd really like to have some KAAMP socks or a mug, I'll throw a mug or some socks up there, and y'all can have socks and mugs. But thank you all very much for listening, and I'll talk at you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, also, one more thing. I would like to thank you again for being kind and receptive to a stranger on the internet because that is.
Well, I did look you up to make sure you weren't a creep.
Well,
but
yeah.
after I felt like that was okay, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, we got our bases covered. Thank you very much.